Today I'm going to interview Beatrice Yorker, the leading expert of Munchausen by proxy. Beatrice, did you really look into Gypsy's case?
Yes and no. The parts that I had heard of, I'd heard of so many cases where children had a feeding tube, where they had unnecessary surgeries, where they had been isolated, they'd been kept at home, they had been doctor shopping, they'd crossed state lines. What I had never heard of was a victim killing their perpetrator.
So you heard feeding tube and just assumed MVP. And of course, Mike Scamfield's lies. But Dee Dee specifically, what can you tell us about Dee Dee?
When it's Munchausen syndrome by proxy or Munchausen by proxy abuse, instead of making yourself sick, you make your child sick or a dependent in your care sick for the purposes of getting medical attention.
I asked about Dee Dee, not the definition of Munchausen by proxy. But anyways, recently Gypsy's been talking a lot of shit about Dee Dee and saying that Dee Dee had a mental illness. Is that true?
No. The people who do this are perfectly conscious and aware and plan and premeditate what they do. So it would be like, do you call a psychopath somebody with a serious mental illness?
Gypsy should really stop saying that then. But you still haven't given me any specifics about Dee Dee, not Munchausen by proxy, Dee Dee specifically. What can you tell me that she did to Gypsy that was just so awful?
Well, there were many things that were shocking, many things that were alarming, many things that were just make you cringe as to what Gypsy endured.
Like what?
I think the feeding tube is one of the things that gives me the most alarm, because once a child has a tube that either goes through their nose and into their stomach, or directly surgically a tube that goes into their stomach, that parent can put in any kind of poisoning or medicine or toxin, and they can also starve the child.
Lady, did you know that she spent a month in the feeding hospital? She was 35 pounds at age 8. She needed that feeding tube. What are you talking about? Her weight got better after the feeding tube. Dee Dee wasn't starving her or poisoning her. Do you know anything about Dee Blanchard? Like, was Dee Dee telling the doctor something we don't know? Do you know something we don't know?
Well, it's a combination of things. They can get the child to present symptoms by over-medicating them. So the child looks drowsy, or you can induce seizures. You can induce vomiting by giving a child Ipecac, which is medicine made if a child accidentally discovers pills and ingests them, and it's like a poison control, get the kid to vomit. But if they're giving the child Ipecac to make them vomit so that they look like they've got some terrible stomach condition, then you can do it that way.
We're talking about Dee Blanchard. Dee Blanchard didn't give Gypsy Ipecac. What are you talking about, lady? All right, can you at least clear this up? Because Gypsy left this comment right after she promoted your show, and it doesn't make sense. She never said this before. Do you know why she would say this?
Roy Meadows' original article talked about a mother who had her 4-year-old daughter evaluated and hospitalized many times for urinary tract infections. And they finally figured it out when they got a urine specimen that was loaded with red blood cells and bacteria. They typed the red blood cells in the urine, and it wasn't the little girl's blood type. It was the mother's blood type. And it turns out the mother had been putting her own menstrual blood into her daughter's urine specimens.
Of course Gypsy stole that story. At least you were honest about that. But really, lady, you can't tell me anything about Dee Blanchard, can you? And the things that she made Gypsy do.
Gypsy's case, certainly, she had a very baby voice. She sort of spoke in a way that sounded convincing that she might have developmental delays.
I don't think Dee Dee forced her to use that baby voice. She's still using that baby voice today to manipulate people. Well, can you at least tell us why Gypsy didn't just get up and walk?
That is a great question. Why Gypsy didn't just get up and walk. She did occasionally, and there were times when they did testing. Right now, I am aware of 4 or 5 cases where children are being kept in wheelchairs who can walk. And a lot of people see those children walk, but they have varying reasons as to why they can't. They will either say, well, I have such a bad seizure disorder that it's unsafe. If I were to have a seizure and fall over, it's better for me to be in a wheelchair.
We're talking about Gypsy specifically. Why do you keep bringing up other cases? Like, you clearly don't know anything about Gypsy or Dee Dee, do you? Next, you're going to tell me that Gypsy was lucky she had her mother murdered.
I believe it was her good fortune that her mother was self-medicating, and her mother was often sleeping or in a drug-induced state, and Gypsy was free to get on the internet. And I think that, in a way, saved her. It opened a door to a life that she could see outside of that little house.
Gypsy got lucky that her mother was always sleeping and medicated? The fact you used the word good fortune, like that was a terrible thing to say. Anyways, Gypsy's a mother now. What do you have to say about that?
I have good news, which is that I'm working with quite a few adult survivors now who are wonderful mothers.
Yes, but Gypsy. What about Gypsy?
I think that Gypsy recognizes that that she does not want to be the way her mother was. I think she'll work really hard to be a nurturing and caring and authentic mother. And, you know, it is just a relief to see how possible that can be.
I mean, she's not doing a very good job so far. I really don't think Gypsy has changed. Like, you really don't think there's any possible way she could turn out like Dee Dee?
Then there probably is a bit of a risk that they may not be the best parents when they become parents.
That's the most honest thing you've said this whole interview, so we'll just end it with that. Thank you so much, Beatrice Yorker, the leading expert of Munchausen by proxy.